Let me ask you a question. There are some 200 cities, according to the U.S. News, that self-proclaim themselves as sanctuary cities. New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, big cities, Philadelphia, smaller cities, Nashville, Portland, Seattle, all the liberal enclaves, the major cities, major Democrat metropolitan areas. Now, how is this any different than nullification of federal laws? What these cities are saying, millions and millions of people are represented by these mayors and city councils and so forth. What they are saying is, we don't care what federal law is. We are not going to inform the federal government of the illegal aliens in our communities. We do not want them deported. And yet they are to be deported under federal law. We have a massive nullification effort going on in this country. Nullification is what the Confederacy did prior to and during the Civil War. Nullifying decisions by the federal government. We have now the left taking a tactic from the Confederacy, from pro-slave states, nullifying federal law. We have a president of the United States who is supposed to be the president of the United States, the entire Union of States. He's taking a page out of the Confederacy by refusing to enforce federal immigration law against cities and states that self-proclaim as sanctuary cities and states in violation of federal law, in violation of federal immigration laws. He's taking a page out of the Confederacy's handbook. So why is it okay for these Democrat mayors and city councils? Why is it okay for our Democrat president of the United States? Why is it okay when they conduct themselves when it comes to nullification like the Confederate States? Why is it okay that they violate federal law, that the President of the United States, by refusing to enforce federal law, is also violating federal law? And I'll take it a step further. The Attorney General of the United States, she has a sworn duty to enforce federal law. They're shaking down corporations. They're going after Dinesh D'Souza. They're doing this. They're doing that. They're nationalizing local police forces. But when it comes to so-called sanctuary cities, these are confederations. We shouldn't even call them sanctuary cities. We should call them confederation cities, confederation states. We got to learn to use the language. We got to learn to be precise. We have a whole confederacy going on out here. 200 cities, a bunch of states. It's a new confederacy. They're nullifying federal law that they disagree with. Absolutely lawless. This is the piece in the U.S. News. Sanctuary cities insist they'll stand strong. They're Confederate cities and Confederate states because they obviously believe in a confederation of nullifying states and cities against the federal union. Donald Trump and mayors of sanctuary cities are engaging in a high-stakes game of chicken as the president-elect vows to withhold billions in federal funds from communities that offer refuge to illegal immigrants. It's estimated more than 200 cities, including New York, Chicago, L.A., have publicly stated they will not provide full cooperation to immigration and customs enforcement agents. New York could lose around $10 billion if Trump follows through on his August campaign pledge to blocking funds to sanctuary cities. So I want to ask the left. I want to ask the Praetorian Guard media. Why aren't you criticizing this confederation of cities, this confederation of states? They are nullifying federal law. They are nullifying federal immigration law. The Attorney General of the United States needs to be asked, why do you sit atop as the top law enforcement official of this confederation of cities and confederation of states that refuse to enforce federal law? Didn't we fight a civil war over this, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't there a supremacy clause in the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen? Did the Supreme Court rule that the President of the United States has plenary power when it comes to immigration? That is, to enforce immigration law when he chooses not to. He's the chief nullifier. He's not only the President of the United States, he's apparently the President of a confederation of cities and states that are nullifying federal law. And the Attorney General of the United States does nothing. The battle lines, writes U.S. News, sharpened after Trump announced his nomination of immigration hardliner Jeff Sessions. Now, why is he an immigration hardliner? What does that mean? Because he opposes this confederation of cities and confederation of states that are nullifying federal law, they're the hardliners. Senator Sessions is trying to uphold the Constitution. San Francisco Mayor Ed Lee is undaunted. Being a sanctuary city is in our DNA. Apparently, so is your low IQ. Lee said in a tweet, San Francisco will never be anything other than a sanctuary city. The issue is especially complicated because the term sanctuary city lacks an agreed-upon definition, since some communities cooperate with immigration and customs enforcement more than others. It's hard to know what types of funding could be affected because some grants are administered through state agencies. Now, when Jeff Sessions becomes Attorney General of the United States, I would strongly encourage him to undertake the process that is the easiest process available to him that I've talked about before. What he should do is go into federal court, seek a writ of mandamus, compelling city and state officials to comply with federal law, that they are not free to nullify federal law. They are not free to nullify federal immigration law, and they must comply with it. And get a court order compelling these local and state officials to comply with federal law under the Supreme Court's ruling. And if they refuse to comply with the court order, then seek to hold them in contempt of court. File a motion for criminal contempt against every damn one of them. And then see if the courts are fully corrupted too. Or if they will compel these mayors and councilmen, governors and whomever else to comply with our immigration laws. Or is it all a free-for-all now? Because, ladies and gentlemen, if it's now a free-for-all, then if cities and states are not compelled, post-Civil War, are not compelled by the Supremacy Clause to comply with federal law, then there's no reason. There's no reason red states should comply with the EPA rules. There's no reason red states should comply with education rules about bathrooms. There's no reason red states should comply with lunch rules coming out of the Agriculture Department or 1,000 other regulations coming out of the federal government. If nullification is the new norm, if the confederation of cities and states that are nullifying federal immigration law are free to do so, well then it's a new game. And we can all pick and choose. And then states can say, sorry, we're not applying Obamacare to our citizens in our state. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, the left has far more to lose through nullification than you and I do. Because the left is all about federal mandates, federal rules, federal orders, federal dictates, federal fiats, federal regulations. That's how they turn this country inside out and up and down. That's what they do with the iron fist, with their autocracy, to impose their will on states and communities. Well then, if they can have a confederation of cities and states that nullify federal immigration law, then I guess anybody can, right? I cannot put a bigger exclamation mark behind this, ladies and gentlemen, because the left, the statist progressive left, has used central government to beat us over the head. They've used it to eviscerate state sovereignty under the 10th Amendment. They've used it to reach into our bedrooms, into our kitchens, into our laundry rooms, into our baby cribs, into the lunchrooms. They reach into our automobiles. There's nowhere they won't reach. And they have said that the feds have the power to do this and pretty much anything else it wants to do. But now it turns out they don't really believe that. They believe the ends justify the means. Now, you and I know that, but they're caught in a legal and governing and political quandary. And we should hammer them for it. And we should. The left is the new Confederacy. The Confederate states and Confederate cities, sanctuary cities, sanctuary states. They are defying federal law. They're nullifiers. That word nullification is a very, very serious word. It was used by the Confederates. They said, hey, look, we're states. If we want to get out, we'll get out. Let me ask you this. Isn't this the equivalent, in many ways, of succession? Isn't it a secession? The cities and states that claim to be sanctuaries. Sanctuaries for what? Don't call them sanctuaries. Call them what they are. Use our language. Use the real language. English language. Aren't they really seceding? Certainly when it comes to issues they disagree with, right? So these cities and states have effectively left the Union. when it comes to the issue of enforcing immigration laws. Now, I'm sure you won't read this on the front pages of the Washington Compost or the New York Slimes. And I'm sure you won't see this on NBC or CBS or ABC or CNN or MSLSD or any of the rest of it. Because they're of the same mindset as the new Confederacy, violating federal law when you disagree with the ends of federal law. So they want open borders. They want endless immigration. They want to change the culture. They want to change the demographics. They want to change the electorate. They want to change the citizenry. The people who come in are praised. The people who come in are virtuous. The people who come in are noble. We're the second-class citizens. Keep your mouth shut or you're going to be accused of racism or xenophobia or whatever phobia. Leave it to the new Confederacy. The new Confederacy that has support by the people who are currently at the top of the federal government. This is a remarkable thing. Let me put it to you this way. We are in a constitutional crisis on many fronts, but we are specifically in a constitutional crisis right now. The question is, do we support our constitutional construct? Are we going to uphold Supreme Court decisions? Are we going to uphold the Supremacy Clause when it comes to the new Confederacy? When it comes to the new nullifiers? When it comes to those who defy federal law? When it comes to immigration law? Or are we going to put this little rebellion down? That's the question.